Welcome to TEC Tube. I'm Dave Herman. Today we're going to be talking about evaporator coils. Our evaporator coils that we carry and sell for our heat pump and condenser units. We have our end coils, cased end, uncased end coil. We have our uncased A coil. For horizontal applications, we have our cased end coil, and we have our cased slab coil. And then the newest coil that we have that will be released soon is our V coil. Right now they're not available, but they will be released soon. For our horizontal coils, these are generally going to be used in attic applications, crawl space applications, residentially, possibly others, but specific use for these two items. Two different configurations. The cased end obviously is going to be a little bit wider. The slab coil, not as wide. So depending on what you have space for in a certain situation, you can use either one of these. Our uncased A coil, pretty straightforward, goes back a long time. Probably used to be the most common coil used. Now, end coils are pretty common these days, but you have the uncased A, put into the ductwork, slid in, we come around it. When we do get these coils, they come in the box, we uncrate them. When you do pull it out, the coils do come with a coil pan that's attached to the bottom. Sometimes it does look, because it's taped on there and sealed pretty tight, it does look like it's part of that coil pan. We do want to remove that from there. So that comes along with the A coil. Same on the uncased end coil. We also have the pan that comes on the bottom of that. These fit on a little bit tighter when you're doing this, so you want to make sure you get these off. And that's going to be something we'll return to in just a second, because a little bit more explanation on that. And then obviously our cased end, that's just going to be put, on the install, onto the furnace, and we'll go from there with our connections as far as our lines go, like with any of the coils. A couple of things on the end coils, cased and uncased. We talked about the coil pan that comes on the bottom of the A coil. Also have that on the uncased end, so we want to make sure we get that off of there. We don't want any restriction when we do use this in an uncased application. So we want to make sure we pop that out. Got to kind of wiggle it, kind of works around our drain fitting. So we have that pan, so we get that off of there. So obviously if we're going to use it in a pan situation, there you go. But there's a couple differences here between these coils. Sometimes when people get A coils, cased A coils, we could pull that A coil out of the case and use it the same way we'd use an uncased A coil. That's not necessarily the case with the end coil. We can't do that. So I started taking this apart already, so I just have a few more screws to take out. So I'll pull these screws out. We'll get the doors off, and then we're going to get this coil slid out so we can see the difference between the coils and why we can't use this coil as is in an uncased application. So I've got everything out and free, so I just got to work my coil out of the case. I'll slide that out. I'm going to set the case down to the side here. As we see, we've got a rail on the bottom because of the end design on the coil. So if we look at both of these coils, they look a little bit different. On this side we have this baffle. This side we're wide open. So if we look from the bottom, we could see how this baffle on this side is going to capture the air and make sure we get through the end side of this coil. If we pull this out of the case, slide this into a plenum, if we don't have this baffle on this side of the coil, and air gets past here, we're gonna obviously run into problems with the refrigerant traveling through this coil, no airflow through the coil. We're gonna see temperatures dropping, freezing up, low pressures. Obviously, our AC isn't gonna work properly. So, rule on this. We do not uncase the end coils and use them in uncased applications. Specifically, uncased end coils for uncased applications, cased end coils for cased applications. It's not the same as an A coil, so we ought to make sure we keep that straight so we don't run into problems after the install, and now we have to go back and correct that after the fact. Okay, we went over the coils, just a quick review of what we just talked about. We have our V coil, which will be coming out in the near future. Not released as of yet, but it will be coming, more to follow on that. We have our two cased horizontal coils, our N and our Slab. We have our Uncased A coil. Again, remember, we want to get the pan frame off of that. We have our N coils, which we talked about the most. Thing to remember, cased end coil for cased application, uncased end coil for uncased application, and also on the encased end, we want to make sure we get that coil pan frame off also on that.